I've always prided myself on being the kind of guy who believes in love, the forever kind. My wife, Lisa, was my everything. We met during college when life was all about endless opportunities and dreaming big. She had this infectious laugh and a smile that could light up a room. I thought, this is it. She's the one. And for a long time, it felt like I was right. We built a life together, the kind you read about in sappy novels. A cozy house in the suburbs, weekend getaways, and even a goofy golden retriever named Max. Everything seemed perfect, or at least close enough. But isn't it funny how life can blindside you when you least expect it? It was a Thursday, an ordinary day like any other. I'd come home early from work, eager to surprise Lisa with her favorite takeout. She had been complaining about stress lately, and I thought a quiet dinner might lift her spirits. I walked through the front door, juggling the food bags and Max's leash, only to be met with an eerie silence. No greeting, no "hey, babe," from the living room. At first, I thought she might have stepped out to run errands. But then I noticed her purse on the counter and her shoes by the door. That's when a knot started to form in my stomach, a kind of sixth sense telling me something wasn't right. Curious, I walked upstairs, calling out her name. And then I heard it, faint murmurs coming from our bedroom. My heart sank. Slowly, I pushed the door open, and there she was, Lisa, wrapped in the arms of another man. The image is burned into my brain, like a scene from a bad movie you wish you could forget. In that moment, everything inside me shattered. I stood there frozen, a million thoughts racing through my head. Who was this guy? How long had this been going on? Why wasn't I enough? But before I could say a word, Lisa turned and saw me. Her face drained of color, and for the first time in years, she was utterly speechless. For a few seconds, it felt like the world stopped spinning. Lisa scrambled to grab a robe, her movements jerky and panicked, while the guy, some young-looking, overly confident man, just stared at me, frozen like a deer in headlights. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but I couldn't move. It was as if my body was paralyzed by shock. "Jake, I can explain," Lisa stammered, but those words only added fuel to the fire raging in my chest. Explain. What could she possibly say to make sense of what I had just seen? I didn't even know how to respond. My voice, when it finally came out, sounded distant and hollow. "Explain what, Lisa?" "That you're in our bed with some random guy while I'm out working my ass off for us." She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Instead, she turned to the man, her expression torn between guilt and desperation. "Tyler, you should leave," she muttered. Tyler. So now this guy had a name that suddenly became etched into my brain as the representation of my worst nightmare. Without a word, Tyler gathered his things and slipped past me, not even daring to meet my eyes. I stayed rooted to the spot, staring at Lisa, who was now sitting on the edge of the bed, her head in her hands. For years, I had seen her as the love of my life, my partner, my better half. But in that moment, she was a stranger who had ripped my heart out and stomped on it without hesitation. I finally managed to speak, though my voice was shaking. "How long, Lisa? How long has this been going on?" She looked up at me, her eyes brimming with tears. "It was a mistake, Jake. I swear. It didn't mean anything. It's just been a few weeks." Her words hit me like a sledgehammer. A few weeks. That meant every smile, every kiss, every "I love you" she had given me recently was tainted by this betrayal. I wanted to believe her, to cling to the hope that this was just some temporary lapse in judgment. But deep down, I knew better. I walked out of the bedroom, my mind reeling, my chest tight as if I couldn't catch my breath. Lisa followed me, still trying to explain, but her words sounded like static in my ears. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses. I needed space, time to process what I'd just witnessed. Downstairs, I collapsed onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall. How did we even get here? I replayed the past few months in my mind, looking for signs I might have missed. Had there been late nights she couldn't explain? A distance between us I'd chalked up to stress or routine. In hindsight, it all seemed so obvious, yet at the time, I'd convinced myself we were fine. Lisa sat down across from me, her face streaked with tears. "Jake, I don't even know how to begin," she said, her voice trembling. I didn't reply right away. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, but another part, one I hated to admit, was just heartbroken. I'd built my entire world around this woman, trusted her with everything. And now, that trust felt like a cruel joke. Finally, I spoke, my voice cold and unfamiliar even to me. "Why, Lisa? Was I not enough for you? Did our life together mean so little that you could just throw it away like this?" She shook her head, her tears falling faster. "No, it's not like that, Jake. You are enough. I've just been lost. I don't know who I am anymore. It wasn't about you. It was about me." Her words were like salt in an open wound. I'd heard that line in movies, read it in books, but I never thought I'd hear it from her. "So what now?" I asked bitterly. "You expect me to just forgive you and pretend this never happened?" Lisa looked down at her hands, unable to meet my gaze. "I don't know. I just don't want to lose you. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But a part of me couldn't help wondering if this was just damage control, if she was only sorry because she'd been caught. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Lisa eventually went upstairs, probably hoping I'd follow her, but I stayed on the couch, staring at the ceiling as my mind spiraled. Every memory we'd built together felt tainted now. The way she'd smile at me, the laughter we'd shared, all of it seemed fake, like a cruel trick my own brain was playing on me. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I needed answers, real answers, not the half-hearted excuses Lisa had tried to give me. Over coffee, I confronted her again. This time, my tone was sharper, more controlled. "Lisa, if you want even the slightest chance of fixing this, you need to tell me everything. No lies. No sugarcoating. Just the truth." She hesitated, and for a moment, I thought she might backtrack. But then she sighed, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of her guilt was finally too much to bear. "It started at work," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tyler is a new hire. We worked on a couple of projects together, and I don't know, Jake. He paid attention to me in a way that made me feel seen. I wasn't looking for it, but it just happened." I clenched my fists under the table, trying to keep my anger in check. "So, what? I don't pay attention to you? I've spent years doing everything I can to make you happy, and this is how you repay me?" Her face crumpled, and she buried it in her hands. "I know I've hurt you. I know I've ruined everything. I hate myself for it, Jake. I really do. But I swear, it's over. I ended it as soon as I realized what I was risking." Her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Could I trust her? Did it even matter anymore? I felt like I was standing on a cliff, teetering on the edge, unsure if I should jump or turn back. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lisa, you've shattered every bit of trust one had in you. I don't know if this is something we can come back from. I don't even know if I want to." Her eyes filled with fresh tears, and for the first time, I saw real fear in them. She didn't just look sad or guilty, she looked terrified. "Please, Jake," she whispered. "Don't give up on us. We've been through so much together. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Lisa's plea echoed in my mind for days. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, but I also saw her betrayal, clear as day. It was like trying to reconcile two versions of her that couldn't exist in the same reality. Part of me wanted to believe she was sincere, that we could somehow work through this and find our way back to what we once were. But the other part, it was screaming at me to protect myself, to walk away before I got hurt even more. In the days that followed, I kept my distance. Lisa tried everything to win me back, apologies, promises, even counseling brochures she left on the kitchen counter. But I wasn't ready to take that step. I needed clarity, and I wasn't going to find it in the same house where everything had fallen apart. So one evening, after telling Lisa I needed space, I packed a bag and drove to a motel on the edge of town. It wasn't glamorous by any stretch, but it gave me the time and quiet I needed to think. Max, our goofy golden retriever, had stayed behind with Lisa. I couldn't bear to take him, knowing he'd only remind me of the life I was trying to untangle. At the motel, I spent hours reflecting on our relationship. I thought about the early days when everything felt effortless, when we couldn't get enough of each other. I thought about the milestones we'd shared, the house, the vacations, the quiet nights binge-watching shows on the couch. Were all those moments real, or had they just been illusions, masking cracks that had always been there? One night, I called my best friend, Brandon. He'd been my rock through tough times before, and I needed his perspective. When I told him what had happened, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Jake," he finally said, "you deserve better than this. I know it's not my place to tell you what to do, but if you stay, make sure it's for the right reasons, not because you're afraid of starting over." His words hit me hard. Starting over was terrifying, no doubt about it. But so was the idea of staying in a relationship where trust had been broken so completely. I realized then that no amount of love could fix what Lisa had done. She might have been sorry, but the damage was already done, and I wasn't sure if I could ever truly forgive her. After a week away, I returned home, but not because I had made a decision. I needed closure, one way or another. When I walked through the door, Lisa was waiting for me in the living room, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked smaller somehow, as if the weight of what she had done had physically shrunk her. "Jake," she started, but I held up a hand. "Before you say anything, I need to be honest with you," I said. My voice was calm, but inside, my emotions were a storm. "I don't know if we can come back from this. What you did didn't just hurt me, it broke something in me. And I don't know if it can ever be fixed." Her tears started again, but I kept going. "I don't hate you, Lisa. I don't think I ever could. But I also don't think I can stay in a marriage where trust doesn't exist anymore." She nodded slowly, as if she'd been preparing herself for this moment. "I understand," she whispered. "But please know that I'll always regret what I did. You didn't deserve it, Jake. You're a good man." Hearing her say those words didn't feel like the victory I thought it might. It just made everything hurt more. That night, I slept in the guest room, knowing it would be my last night in the house that had once felt like home. The next morning, I started making arrangements to move out. I didn't know where I'd go or what my future would look like, but I knew I couldn't stay. Lisa and I agreed to separate, and though she begged me to reconsider, I knew in my heart it was the right choice. As I packed up my things, Max followed me around the house, his tail wagging as if nothing had changed. I knelt down to pet him, feeling a lump in my throat. "Take care of her, buddy," I whispered. It was one of the hardest moments of my life, but I knew it was necessary. Walking out the door that final time, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for what I had lost, but relief for the chance to start over. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but at least it would be honest. And maybe, someday, I'd find someone who would value that honesty as much as I did. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.